Five Nights at Freddy's is a series I have a bit of a weird relationship with. Now, I can imagine some of you are rolling your eyes at the fact I have any relationship with it at all, but look, I was a 14-year-old with no social skills when Five Nights at Freddy's 1 dropped. I was basically guaranteed to get at least a little obsessed with it. But, with that being said, as a 22-year-old with no social skills, my outlook on the series has definitely changed a little bit. Five Nights at Freddy's has gotten a lot of flack for really leaning into this horror for kids phenomenon that has really started to take hold lately. You know, these fucking unremarkable at best games that are just filled to the brim with goofy characters designed less so to scare you, and more so to sell you a Funko Pop. Which in fairness is still pretty scary, but still. I don't think Five Nights at Freddy's is the biggest offender here, but it's definitely an offender. I mean, the fact that every other FNAF character gets leaked through merchandising says a lot. That's a bit of a red flag. To be completely honest, I'm not really a fan of the direction the series has gone, and I'm pretty overall unbothered by modern Five Nights at Freddy's. And that's okay. I know for a lot of people, the direction that Five Nights at Freddy's has gone has just killed their interest in the series altogether, and that's not personally how I feel. Like, a lot of people are very clearly happy with modern FNAF, and you know what? That's cool. I'm glad you found a thing that you like. That's badass. Like, Five Nights at Freddy's going in a direction that I don't care for doesn't change the fact that there are games that already exist that I do care for. And I guess Five Nights at Freddy's doing something I'm not a fan of has just kind of made me appreciate the older games a little bit more. And that's cool. There's a surprising amount of variety in the Five Nights at Freddy's series, and there's a lot of different things to appreciate. If you enjoy the series for its colourful cast of characters, then maybe Security Breach is your favourite. If you're playing the series for a challenge, then maybe Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is your favourite. If you're in it for the lore, then, I don't know, maybe Pizzeria Sim is your favourite. And if you came to the series looking for Season 30 of The Simpsons level humour, then maybe Sister Location is your favourite.
Welcome, Eggs Benedict.
However, for me personally, there are two Five Nights at Freddy's games that I would genuinely consider good-ass games, and I want to focus on one of them in particular today. With just how absolutely massive the franchise has gotten over the years, it's weird to think about a time when there was only just one Five Nights at Freddy's game. A game designed not so much to be a Five Nights at Freddy's game, and more so to just be a short and sweet horror game.
Oh!
And you know what? I think it might be the best at being a short and sweet horror game. Today, I want to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and why I think it's honestly pretty cool. Unironically, even. So, obviously FNAF 1's gameplay isn't anything super crazy, but I do think it deserves at least a little bit of credit. I'm sure that most of you are, like, at least a little bit familiar with how this game works. You're here, and you can't move. There are 4 silly little characters who can move, and they're trying to track you down so that they can play dress-up with you. You have a limited amount of power each night, and each means of defense that you have against the animatronics consumes some of that power. And if you happen to run out of power, well, you're probably fucked unless you're pretty close to finishing the night. Bonnie and Chica are mostly the same, moving from room to room, showing up in your door lights, jamming them if they manage to get inside your office, and if that happens, they'll kill you the next time you put your camera down. The main differences between them are that they only attack from the left and right side respectively, and that Bonnie can teleport while Chica is stuck traveling to adjacent rooms. You know, I'm not really a fan of the game promoting this dated stereotype that women can't teleport, but, you know, that's 2014 for you. Foxy hangs out in Pirate's Cove and will slowly become more agitated the less you use your cameras, eventually dipping and running down the West Hall where he'll either kill you or bash on your left door if you have it shut, draining 1% of your power with an extra 6% on top of that for each subsequent attack. Freddy is... Fuck, Freddy's a bit wild actually. I've no idea how people were supposed to figure out how Freddy worked on their own. This guy's a bit out there. Freddy slowly makes his way from the show stage to the East Hall corner, laughing every time he moves. You can track him and stall his movement with the cameras, but he's significantly more discreet than Bonnie or Chica. Once he's in the East Hall corner, he'll sneak into your office as soon as you pull up the camera, unless you keep it on the East Hall corner or have the right door shut. I really like Freddy's implementation, but man, he's definitely the most unintuitive out of the four, although in a weird way, I think it really works in FNAF 1's favour. Freddy is like the reality check of this game, and honestly, I really fuck with it. In general, I think FNAF 1 does a really good job in terms of how much it lets the player know. Phone Guy already does a good job at like setting the scene of the game, giving you motivation for not wanting to get caught, you know, because you fucking die. But in terms of gameplay, he does a pretty good job at explaining things like Foxy and the door lights in a pretty natural way.
Also, check on the curtain in Pirate Cove from time to time. The character in there seems unique in that he becomes more active if the cameras remain off for long periods of time.
But you really are left to your own devices when it comes to Freddy. Other than the line where he says, becomes more active than the dark, I guess there's that, but I don't know. Take it or leave it, I guess. I've seen so many people cruise through the first 2 or 3 nights of FNAF 1, and then immediately panic once they realize Freddy's left the stage. Once that happens, they usually just like flick through the cameras in a panic, just trying to track him down, and even when they eventually do, they're not entirely sure what to do about it right off the bat. And that's if you track him down. That's easier said than done, given how tricky he can be to spot sometimes. I really enjoy when you actually feel like you want to use the cameras in FNAF, because weirdly enough, it's unfortunately pretty underutilized throughout the series. Like, once you've figured out the game completely, you're basically never using the cameras for their intended purpose. You are strictly using them to lock down Freddy and Foxy, and that's a bit of a shame. During the first 3 nights, players might have even figured something like this out for themselves, realizing that it's way more efficient to just rely on the door lights for Bonnie and Chica and using the camera exclusively for Foxy. Freddy really throws a wrench in this, and having to figure him out for myself was really stressful when I first played the game. But looking back at it, I think it was really well done. It shakes up the gameplay at a point where the game might be getting a little bit stale for some people, and having to figure out Freddy on the fly really works given how helpless Five Nights at Freddy's 1 sets the player up to be. It's really cool, honestly. FNAF 1 Freddy might honestly be one of the most complex animatronics in the series in terms of gameplay, and you know, he's not anything crazy, but I'll take it over FNAF 2 essentially copy-pasting the same character 9 times, that's for sure. Also, going back to how I like when you actually feel like you want to look at the cameras just because, I don't know, it's fun and cool, there's another aspect of FNAF 1 that I think leans really well into this. And that's that the game actually has a little bit of downtime. So obviously in the game's later nights, or if you're playing 420 mode, you don't really have an opportunity to like take your time and look at the cameras. But let's say you're a relatively experienced player and you're just replaying the game, and you're just kind of sitting there twiddling your thumbs on the earlier nights, well, it's very easy to just take a peek at the cameras and, you know, take it all in. This might seem like a weird thing to give the game credit for, like, no shit, if you want to be on optimal and take the time to look at the cameras, then you can do that. But listen, honest to god downtime is actually a bit of a rarity in the FNAF series. Like, for example, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 doesn't really have any significant downtime. Whether you're on night 1 or playing 1020 mode, you will always have to take the same amount of time out of your night to babysit the puppet and keep that music box wound up. Foxy being the way he is in FNAF 2 also doesn't help, but it's mostly the music box I'm pointing fingers at. Fuck the music box. I don't know if it's just me, but I personally think FNAF 2 just completely fumbled its camera system. Like, there's even less reason to look at the cameras in FNAF 2 than there is in FNAF 1. And FNAF 2 never has any, like, significant shake-up the way FNAF 1 did with Freddy that ever makes you panic and flick through the cameras, like, trying to figure out what's going on. FNAF 2 just doesn't really have that. And I think that's a shame, because looking at cameras is fucking cool. To give FNAF 2 some credit, I do think its gameplay loop outside of the cameras is quite fun. Like, even if I much prefer FNAF 1, I prefer FNAF 2's 1020 mode to FNAF 1's 420 mode. I know people are generally quite critical of the gameplay loop in 420, although I wouldn't really hold that against FNAF 1. 420 mode is just like an extra bonus that's there for people who want to do that. Still, I just think it's a shame that cameras are even less important in FNAF 2 than they are in FNAF 1, because I like looking at them. And you know what? I've gone on and on about how I like looking at the cameras in FNAF 1, but realistically, what is there to look at? Now, listen, if you're not familiar with FNAF, this might sound like an absolutely fucking insane take, but hear me out. I think FNAF 1 actually looks pretty fucking good. Like, obviously this shit doesn't need to go up in a museum or whatever, but like, the FNAF games have a specific way of looking, at least for the earlier ones. And I think out of those games, FNAF 1, by a landslide, looks the best. Generally, when people talk about the aesthetics of FNAF 1, they're talking about the sound design, and honestly, the sound design is great. I will briefly touch on that. But I think we gotta give this game some credit for how it looks, because I like it. FNAF 1 looks really fucking dingy, but in like a really good way. Like, you're looking around on the cameras, and this establishment looks kind of fucked up, but like, not in a bad way. There's like wires and shit everywhere, and the lights are flickering. The whole place feels like really run down. It really makes you feel more unsafe than you already do. And another little thing that FNAF 1 does I really enjoy is how the animatronics sort of change their demeanor as they approach you. Like, when you see Bonnie and Chica here in the dining room, they look pretty fucking goofy, you know? They're just silly little characters. But the closer they get to you, the more intimidating they become. They're in the hall and like Bonnie's just standing there shrouded in darkness, Chica's looking a little bit fucked up, and then suddenly they're in the corner and Bonnie's giving you these fucking bedroom eyes and occasionally he just freaks the fuck out, and same with Chica. I don't know, it's a little thing, but I really do like it. I think it's very well done. Like, when you look around on the cameras, everything has this air of darkness to it, but not in like an obnoxious way that's just making things hard to see for the sake of it. The animatronics blend into the darkness really well. I really enjoy how the lighting is handled. I also really like how Freddy appears on the cameras, like how he's shrouded in darkness, you can mostly only make out his face or his eyes. It's really cool, and again, it's a very good way of making something feel mysterious without making it obnoxiously hard to see. It's not like FNAF 3 where it was just like, okay, what if instead of having good visual design, we just made the cameras 144p and cranked the static up to 11? Also, hope you like green. Have fun. Compare this to FNAF 2, and like, I'm sorry I keep bullying FNAF 2. I promise, I actually like FNAF 2. I think it's fine, but like, I like a lot of the new shit that it does, but a lot of the stuff that it carries over from FNAF 1 I just think is done worse. FNAF 2 feels distinctly very rushed. In FNAF 2, you can use a flashlight while using the cameras to light up the room that you're looking at, and on paper that sounds cool, but in practice it just makes it so every single camera is so dark you can't really see anything, or obnoxiously bright in a way that just kills the atmosphere. The lighting in FNAF 1 makes it so a lot of the animatronics blend into the environment really well, whereas in FNAF 2, a lot of the time they kinda just look like a JPEG slapped onto an overly bright environment. I really don't like how it looks, but, you know, sorry for knocking on FNAF 2 so much. I'll stop that eventually. It's not my least favorite, I promise. I like FNAF 2 a little bit. I don't know if it's just me, but there's a sense of visual polish in FNAF 1 that just kind of feels missing in some of the later games. Like, I've already gushed about how the environments look, and I really do like them, but even on top of that, while I don't think all of them are amazing, all of the jump scares in FNAF 1 are at least good. None of them look awful like FNAF 2 or Pizzeria Simulator. Foxy running down the hallway is like, for some reason, a genuine contender for the nicest looking animated thing out of the entire classic Septology? Is that what that is? FNAF 1 actually has a really cool game over screen. Like, it's really neat actually. It actually shows you what happens to you when you get caught. It's badass. FNAF 2 just has Freddy giving you the bedroom eyes, and everything after that is just text. You know, just basic ass text letting you know that, yes, the game is over, as a matter of fact. It feels like there's a little bit more variety to what the animatronics can do in FNAF 1, at least on a visual sense. Like, characters like Bonnie have multiple images for when they're in the same room. There's this one for when he's just standing in the backstage, and then there's this other one where he's looking up at the camera like ooga booga. And also, I gotta say, I really just like the designs of the animatronics in FNAF 1. I'm not saying they're like hyper-realistic or whatever, but their designs feel relatively grounded. Like these are the designs of animatronics that could exist, you know? And I know people have critiqued Foxy's jump scare where he just leans in and opens his mouth, but I like the movement on it. It feels like a thing that he could actually do. It's not like FNAF 2 where you've got these fucking 800-pound cyber robots jumping at you like actual people. You get me? Like that's a bit goofy. Something about the way FNAF 1's visuals are done, I think just lends itself to a really well done atmosphere. And obviously, another big part of making that atmosphere work is the sound design. And like everyone's talked about it at this point, FNAF 1's sound design is pretty fucking good. I really enjoy how there's so many sounds that are kind of designed to intentionally mislead the player. Like, for every sound that genuinely ties into the gameplay, there's something that's just meant to send you on a wild goose chase as to guessing what it's for. Like, for every Chica banging about in the kitchen letting you know she's in the kitchen, or Freddy laughing to let you know he's moved, there's Foxy's fucking dum-da-dum-dum-dum-dum song, you know? Which does nothing. It's just there to be there. It's just there to fuck with you. And that's cool. The droning sound of the fan throughout the entire night just making you feel a little bit more on edge than you already were. The sound of the camera moving left and right, I don't know what it is about that. There's something slightly uncomfortable about that I really enjoy. And maybe my favorite sound in the entire game is this sound that the animatronics sometimes make when they're near the camera. This like horrible fucking raspy breathing. There's something so fucking uncomfortable about it that really leans into this sort of uncanny valley sense the animatronics in FNAF 1 have. Like, you know they're not completely alive, but shit like this makes you question, how alive are they actually? Are they alive at all? Something that's not alive probably wouldn't be able to do that, right? What the fuck is going on here? I don't get it. Listen, I hate to go on a fucking YouTube gamer rant, but just for a second, I just gotta say, I can't fucking stand that in the later FNAF games, they just made the animatronics talk like actual fucking people. It's like my number one least favorite thing FNAF ever did. I hate it so fucking much.
I know you're over there somewhere. It's bedtime. Let's go back to our stage.
I don't mind it so much in like Security Breach because like by that point they were like, fuck it, we're not gonna be a horror game anymore, let's just have fun with this. But in like Sister Location, it's so fucking corny. Like the voice acting is well done, no disrespect to the voice actors or anything. I just hate that it's there. Like you completely killed that uncanny valley sense of these animatronics being somewhat alive or like clinging to life. No, now they're just people in robot suits. I fucking hate it. Like when I was a teenager playing FNAF 1, I actually was scared of the animatronics. And then shit like Sister Location came around and they jump scare you and it's like, aha, I got you, buy my Funko Pop, gosh. And it's like, fuck off. Like, I'm sorry. I had to get that out of my system. I wish they just still made goofy noises and not, you know, shit like that. So yeah, FNAF 1 has really good audio design. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. However, there's one aspect of FNAF 1's aesthetics that I've deliberately neglected to mention up until this point. And that's because it sort of ties into the last thing I'd like to talk about and give FNAF 1 some credit for, because I think it does it quite well. And all I'll say is bear with me, because I know this is something people kind of clown on the series for, so just hear me out, that's all I'm saying. Now, I know it's very, very easy to poke fun at FNAF lore, and I totally get it. At some point, it really just went off the fucking rails and started to do whatever the fuck it wanted, or in some cases, whatever the fuck no one wanted. However, I think it's worth noting that a big aspect of why FNAF's lore is just so all over the place is because there's so many FNAF games, and like every subsequent FNAF game has like some obligation to like tie to the game before it, and then set up mysteries that'll be solved in the next game. Like, they have to pack a lot into them, which is tricky to do sometimes, to be fair. FNAF 1 had the luxury of not really having to deal with any of this. Like I said, FNAF 1 wasn't really designed to be a Five Nights at Freddy's game. It was designed to be a small little horror game. And because of that, the lore and the mystery in FNAF 1 is very well contained. The game sets up a nice little mystery, and like I said earlier, FNAF 1 is pretty smart about what it lets the player know. It doesn't, like, force a bunch of lore down your fucking throat, but what it does convey to the player really kind of gets you thinking, and I like that. A bit of a running trend with these horror for kids games is that they've set up their mystery or their story in a really weird way where sometimes it'll feel like they don't actually want you to figure it out at all. That, or it's like just explained to you in the most fucking obvious way possible. Or a weird mix of both. It's kind of hard to describe, but sometimes it feels like these games are setting up their mysteries in a way not to make you think or, you know, promote discussion, but just to get a fucking game theory video made on their game. You know what I mean, right? I really like how FNAF 1 sets the scene. Like, you're just dropped in with no explanation, all you know is that you are a security guard and this is Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and then suddenly this guy rings you up, he tells you a little bit about the place, and he just casually drops the fact that one of these goofy looking animatronics bit a fucking chunk out of someone's forehead.
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day, too, but then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, you know?
And that, if they happen to catch you, they'll crush all your bones in a metal suit, popping your eyes out your face. And that's it. He just casually drops that and leaves you to your own devices. I think that's brilliant. I think Phone Guy is just kind of great in FNAF 1, honestly. The Night 1 phone call is a really good introduction that sets the scene very nicely. The Night 2 one is nice in that, you know, it pretty naturally explains things like Foxy and the door lights. The Night 3 one is fine, nothing wrong with it, doesn't take up too much of your time. And the Night 4 one is really cool, because you fucking listen to Phone Guy get caught by the animatronics, and he fucking dies.
Yeah, I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there, you know. Oh no.
That's really cool. They should have done something like that again. I really like that. And then on Night 5, the fucking animatronics ring you up just to chat shit. Which is amazing. I love that. And of course, when they ring you up to chat shit, it's in this, like, garbled, roboticized voice. You can't really make it out. And that's cool, because as I've established, I fucking hate it when these guys actually just talk to you.
Hey gang, it's me, Tony, and today we're gonna see if I'm faster than this mousetrap.
I think Phone Guy in FNAF 2 is good as well, but I think there might be a bit more of him than there needed to be. Like, Phone Guy is still fucking going on by Night 6 in FNAF 2. Like, he's still running his mouth about how fucking Golden Freddy ties into the sloppy toppy of 84. In FNAF 1, bro is probably decomposed at this point. He's been dead 2 whole nights. And listen, I gotta say, Phone Guy in FNAF 3 is fucking atrocious. It's unbelievably awful. For a start, we don't have Phone Guy in the traditional sense. You've got Phone Dude, okay? He rings you up on Night 1, is nowhere near as charming as Phone Guy, and he explains some gameplay stuff, but he takes up the entire night.
We may have overdone it a bit. Some of this equipment is barely functional. Yeah, I wasn't joking about the fire. That's a real risk.
Nothing actually happens on Night 1 of FNAF 3. It is just dedicated to this fucking phone call. If you've heard this audio once, there is absolutely nothing to gain from Night 1 of FNAF 3. The night is sped up to compensate, but it's still boring as hell. I'm aware that nothing really happens during the Night 1 phone call in FNAF 1 either, but like, at least there you can just look around on the cameras and take it all in. You don't want to do that in FNAF 3 because the cameras are so fucking ugly. You're just sitting there listening to this goofy ass audio, it's awful. And then on Night 2, Phone Dude lets you know that he found some freaking epic cassettes, and then from the second half of the Night 2 phone call all the way up to Night 6 of FNAF 3, instead of having traditional phone calls, you have audio recordings of Phone Guy explaining to employees how these weird spring lock suits work.
Okay, I'll leave you a some of this great audio that I found. Talk to you later, man. Hello? Welcome to your new career as a performer/entertainer for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
All it is 5 phone calls worth of exposition just to set up purple guy putting on a suit and he die. That's all it is. It's so fucking lame. Five Nights at Freddy's is just occasionally a little bit guilty of shoving lore down your throat whether you like it or not. Like in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you had these death mini-games that you'd randomly have to play every time you died. And honestly, those are pretty cool. They're not super intrusive, and of course, if you don't want to play them, you could just get good and not die. But it's weird that you can't skip them. You're forced to play them or either just restart the game. Like, once you've played these once, there's not really anything to gain from playing them again. FNAF 3 had these optional mini-games you could play if you were going for the good ending, which is cool, but now we have mini-games between every single night. They take a long-ass time, and you can't skip them. That's pretty fucking stupid. And listen, FNAF 4, I love ya, but I should be able to skip these. I've seen them once. I'm getting nothing out of playing them again. I'm sorry. Five Nights at Freddy's 1 doesn't have anything like this. There are secrets, and those secrets can be important to piecing the lore together, but they're not these goofy-ass mini-games that you're just randomly forced to play. No, they're just little tidbits that occasionally sneak up on the cameras, and I think that's really fun. Like, you might just be playing the game for yourself, and you'll notice this goofy-ass poster has changed, and it's like, oh shit, kids went missing here? Oh, that's kinda spooky, I guess. Wait, sanitation? Reanimated carcasses? Oh fuck. Do these guys have, like, dead bodies in them? Is that what they're getting at? Oh shit, 5 kids went missing. But if they're in the animatronics, then where the fuck is the 5th kid? There's only 4 animatronics. Obviously, this is nothing groundbreaking. People have figured all this out at this point. But, like, at the time, it was very fun to think about. I got really caught up in it. And of course, that's not, like, the only mystery FNAF 1 sets up. That one has, like, a bit of a definitive, like, closure to it. But then there's stuff like, who did the bite of 87 that the phone guy mentions on night 1? I always assume that's what It's Me was referring to, like which animatronic did it. I used to assume it was Foxy because like this sign here that usually says out of order changes to It's Me sometimes when he leaves the stage, but then you've got like these weird hallucinations of Freddy and Bonnie saying It's Me, and it's like, man, I don't actually know if we know who did the bite of 87 yet. I don't keep up to date with the lore really, but in a way I think that's cool, you know. It's nice that there's something here that has sort of a conclusive answer, but there are still mysteries that are set up to have open ends without it feeling obnoxious. It's fun to think about and theorize. And of course there's a ton of other fun little Easter eggs you can find on the cameras here and there. This poster of Freddy will sometimes change to him ripping his own fucking head off. Sometimes these posters will be replaced with these like crying faces, which is a bit bizarre. Sometimes these heads in the parts and services room will all look at you. I fucking love that one, that's so good. It's a shame that this one here was unused, where all the animatronics on the show stage look directly into the camera. That's a real bummer. I believe they used it in the mobile port, but I spent ages trying to get this image to come up when I was a teenager. I wish it was in the PC version. Again, it's a little thing, but I do think some of the later games in the series fumbled this concept a little bit. FNAF 2 has a lot of little things that'll occasionally change up on the cameras, but none of them really clicked with me as much as anything in FNAF 1. A lot of them just feel kind of random, like this paper plate person will go missing and sometimes it'll show up in your office. Like, okay. And this might be a bit weird to explain, but I feel like a lot of the random events that can occur on the cameras in FNAF 2 are just trying to be, like, shocking for the sake of it. You know? Like, they're trying to top Golden Freddy from FNAF 1. You've got this endoskeleton that can appear. You've got fucking whatever this is, and you've got Shadow Freddy. All of these just kind of feel like a bit of a fumbled attempt to recapture the magic of Golden Freddy, and I don't think it works. Golden Freddy was really cool because, you know, he ties into the mystery that FNAF 1 sets up. It's not something that's just there and will get explained in, like, FNAF 3 or 4 or whatever the fuck. You know? He's the 5th animatronic. He explains why 5 kids went missing. He also just does more. He appears in your office and he jump scares you, and it's a completely unique jump scare. He has his own jump scare sound effect. and it's a different style. It's not animated, it's just a fucking JPEG covers your screen. In a cool way though, I kind of like it. And then your game crashes. That just doesn't really happen in FNAF 2. The endoskeleton never attacks you, he just appears on the cameras, same with Shadow Freddy. And this thing does crash your game, but it doesn't jump scare you. It just has a very, very low chance of showing up, and if it does, you know, you could either ignore it, or you can let your game get crashed. I don't know. I don't think it's anywhere near as cool. I know Shadow Freddy and this thing do have story relevance, but it really only came into play in FNAF 3, and that's just nowhere near as cool to me. And speaking of FNAF 3, FNAF 3 tried to make, like, having secret little things on the cameras into a gameplay mechanic. Like, you would have to find goofy little things hidden on the cameras to access the hidden mini-games that you needed to beat for the good ending. And there's some stuff outside of the cameras, like fucking having to type a code into the fucking wall. But I don't really care for it. Again, looking at the cameras in FNAF 3 is just not fun. They're so gross and bad and awful. I'm not a fan. FNAF 3 did have this Freddy character appear on your left side occasionally, and I don't know, that's kind of neat. Apparently this is Shadow Freddy. I thought it was Golden Freddy, but, you know, that's something, I guess. It might seem like I'm giving FNAF 1 too much credit for a bunch of little things, but that's the thing. There was a point in time where that's all FNAF 1 was. It was just a little thing. It was a small little horror game that set up a nice little mystery and got people talking. It did a good job at it, too. Like, all the lore in FNAF 1 is nice. It's contained within itself. There's not some stupid bullshit overarching story yet. It's just, here's a mystery. If you look around in the game and you're observant enough, you'll probably figure it out. There are some things in FNAF 1 that aren't really explained, but I don't think they're obnoxious or anything. They're just, like, things to get people talking, like the crying faces in the hallway, or not answering who did the bite of 87. Like, we still don't know that today, and I think that's neat. I'm not trying to say that FNAF 1 is like a masterclass in horror or anything. It probably wouldn't make my top 10 games of all time, not my top 20, not my top 30, but it's just a neat little game that I enjoy. I hope this vid didn't come across like me just bashing on the later FNAF games that, you know, didn't click with me so much. That's not really what I wanted to do. I just kind of want to talk about a game that I think is pretty cool, and I guess a part of that is explaining why I don't think some of the later ones are as cool, to me, personally. I'm not trying to argue that FNAF 1 is objectively the best or whatever. Like, there's so many people who like these games for so many different reasons. I don't really think there's any point in trying to be objective about it. And fucking what would I know about objectivity? I don't care. I'm not a game designer. I don't know anything. So yeah, I'm not super bothered about FNAF's future endeavors, whether it be new games, new content for existing games, or just, you know, overall questionable decisions that I'm not going to touch on. If you know, you know. But at the end of the day, the series gave me a thing that I like. And that's pretty cool. And obviously, it gave a whole lot of people a whole lot of different things that they like as well. And that's also pretty cool. Let me know if you agree with me, or if you don't. This was fun. I've wanted to talk about this for a while. Wasn't sure how to go about it. Wasn't sure how it would go down. But hey, it was a bit of fun nonetheless. Thanks for watching.